The reason why we've set them up is because we want to just raise awareness of the medtech development process and also general clinical research process to people who've never done research before. So I'm not going to ask you to sign the dotted line after this session and force you to do things you don't want to do. So if you want to view this as a purely informational session, that is perfectly fine. But it's also an opportunity for you to ask questions, you know, and stop us at any point. You don't have to wait until like 15, 20 minutes later. And in terms of general housekeeping, I will be recording this so that it can benefit those people that were not able to attend. And it goes on our YouTube channel, which is a channel people subscribe to. So if you really don't want your face to come out on video, then you're more than welcome to switch off your video. You will definitely not be judged by any measure, but it's just purely for the basis of making sure people are able to tap into the discussions, because they might have similar questions as well. I will also ask you to mute your microphones, and then that reduces the background noise. And if you do want to say something, you can either type in the chat box and I'll be able to pick that up, or you can either put your hand up virtually. I understand there's a virtual function on the thing, on Zoom somewhere at the bottom where there's reactions, or just put any reaction and I will come to you. Otherwise, you can stick your hand up if you've got your camera on, and I will come to you because it's not showing all your faces on my screen. So I will come to you, or feel free to button if you think I actually haven't seen you and ignored you for too long. And I think that's the basics in terms of introduction. Is everybody happy with that so far?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So what I'll do now is I will just give you a very brief introduction into the Surgical MedTech Cooperative, who we are, what we do, who we're funded by. And I think that provides some sort of context in terms of what we're doing here and some of the discussions that you're gonna hear as well on this during the hour. So the Surgical MedTech Cooperative, in short, is part of something called the National Institute for Health and Social Care Research. And that covers England only, but they do work with their Scottish and Welsh counterparts. But the funding for NIHR, as the acronym is known, is basically for England. It stays within England and it's used to collaborate with people everywhere. The NIHR itself is funded by the Department of Health. So we get our money from the Department of Health. So if you look at the Department of Health at the top of the food chain, it splits off into two. You've got the National Health Service, the NHS, and then you've got the NIHR on the other bit. The NHS just concentrates on patient care, and the NIHR concentrates on delivering research within the NHS. So we're not taking each other's money. The idea is ultimately at the end of it, we develop new treatments and technologies that are actually going to support people who use the NHS, which could be any of us. So that's the background in terms of what the NIHR is. And underneath the NIHR, if you think the NHS is complicated, the NIHR has got the same level of complexity. There's different bits all sitting underneath the NIHR. They all do different things. And I'll just summarize them briefly for you. So the first arm of the NIHR is something called NIHR Academy. And they focus on training the next generation of researchers. So if there's postgraduate students, for example, or doctors that want to move into the research world, they get training from that part of the NIHR. You've got another part that's called systems, and they basically work with the regulators. So you might have heard of the MHRA, which is the Medicine and Healthcare Regulatory Agency in the UK, and they're the ones that approve all medical devices and all medicines for use. So they work very closely with them. They work also closely with the research ethics committees. to make sure that the processes are very quick and people aren't waiting years to get research studies approved. You have NHR funding. And what NHR funding does is they've got, I think, just about a total envelope of about £1 billion, I think, which they can use to fund a variety of research projects. And their main, the way they get the concepts for funding tends to be through something called the James Lind Alliance, which is another organization that talks to a lot of patient and public groups. And they basically ask you, what are the most important questions you want answered for this particular area, clinical area. So for instance, there was a partner, a James Lind Alliance, what they call priority setting partnership, where they will ask patients in the public to ask questions about surgery. So what do you want to see from surgery? And you can ask questions like, what's the best way to recover from surgery? What's the best exercise? So they ask a lot of questions. So they do fund a wide range of things. And then the final bit of the NHR is something called infrastructure, which is where we sit. And infrastructure is where they fund clinicians, academics, and people like me to manage program grants where we are given a mandate to work on a specific area within healthcare research. So you've got other units that work specifically on blood and transplant, so they progress research within that area. We've all been through the COVID pandemic and thankfully survived it. But what most people won't actually be aware of is the AstraZeneca vaccine was actually in partnership with an NHR unit based in Oxford called the Biomedical Research Center. And their focus was actually infection and vaccine. So that's why they were able to develop that quickly, because a lot of the research, the background research was already there from that particular collaboration with the NHR. So AstraZeneca, NHR sat down together and they tried to figure out what's the best way to get this going. So that's the reason why we've got the AstraZeneca vaccine, is basically that's the input that we have. So there's a lot of things that happen in the background that you might not associate with the NHR, but that's the work that we do. And finally, to round off in terms of what we are surgery, we focus specifically on medtech, so we don't do pharmaceuticals. We only work on anything, so a hardcore device, things that surgeons use to prod people, look inside people, imaging machines, imaging devices, software, the dreaded artificial intelligence. We're starting to see a whole lot of that coming through. And it's very important in the work that we do that we solicit your views as members of the public and potential patients or current patients. We need to find out whether you think it's something taxpayers' money should be spent on, because ultimately, this is what's happening, is taxpayers' money goes into the NHR and then we spend it to develop technologies that are appropriate, that have got a high need. So that is where the patient and public involvement becomes very, very important on our front. And what we typically do is we sit with companies and we help them develop particular technologies. And we also help them evaluate the technologies. So that means once they've got a final prototype, we tell them what's the best way to test the actual device, what population you need to look at. We help them with health economics. So is this device value for money? Is it something the NHS is going to buy from you? We help them with what are called feasibility studies, where you actually do a dry run of using the device in a hospital environment. And that's designed to figure out whether clinicians are actually going to use the device. Is it going to be more of a nuisance? Or is it going to be really easy to use? Is it going to disrupt something else further along the line? All those things are important in getting new treatments out to you. So that's what we do, and we focus on surgery, but there are many other different units looking at different clinical areas. So if your interest is not surgery, do not feel like you are wasting your time. We all do the same things, but we just have a different focus. And in our cooperative, what we then do is we have got what we call a PPI committee, so that's Patient and Public Involvement Committee, where we have quarterly meetings, and members of the committee basically help direct the strategy. So if we are planning on funding certain things, they have input into that. If we want to run certain events, they have input into that, and in some cases they actually direct it. We run medtech focus groups where companies come in and they say, here's our shiny gadget, or this is what we're thinking of doing. And we gather a group of patients and members of the public together and say, well, actually, ask all the questions you want about this. If you think it's a bad idea, then let people know it's a bad idea and why it's a bad idea. If you think it's a good one, then likewise, people need to know that. And from those focus groups, you then have opportunities to get more involved in different aspects of a project. This could be reviewing documents. It could be helping the companies decide where they're going to test this particular device. You might be asked to collaborate on a grant funding application, and you might be thinking, I know nothing about grant funding applications, but that is actually the point. They want a fresh pair of eyes to actually ask those critical questions, because we are looking at it from people who are in the field, so we can't look at it independently of all the factors we are aware of. And there's many other ways as well that people can get involved in that. And I'll shortly sort of introduce two of our group members who can tell you a bit more about the experiences. But to bring it back to the main sort of focus for this meeting is, we do struggle to get a lot of people involved in it. And what we're really looking for is just new thinking, new perspectives. So we're really interested to hear about, to talk about barriers, what actually stops people from getting involved in this research. Is it because you don't know about it? Is it because it seems too intensive? Maybe you think you need to have a master's degree or PhD degree to do something, or maybe you're scared of the terminology. Those are all the things that we want to hear, because we can then use that to shape how we then engage with different groups and how we spread the message out. And I'll stop there and I'll see if anyone's got any comments or questions so far. Nope, I can't see any hands up. I mean, it's fine, don't worry about it. Okay, that's great. So what I'll do now is I'll ask Manoj Mistry, who sits on our PPI committee.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm sorry I'm not on video, but I'd like to say hello to everyone. I'm Hamid Khan. I'm sorry I had Wi-Fi issues at home, so I'm using my phone now so that I can stay in the meeting. So if I don't have a good connection, I will write in the chat or I will speak through audio. But lovely to see you all, and sorry to interrupt you, V. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks, Hamid. Okay, Manoj, just introduce yourself, and I think basically just talk about some of the barriers that you've encountered in terms of finding out about research, if you can weave that in that particular discussion as well.
Thank you, V. And I think one or two of you already know me, so nice seeing you again, Hamid. I'm Manoj Mistry, a British Indian from Greater Manchester. I'm a family carer. I look after my eldest sister, who's 74, and she's had bipolar disorder for 35 years. My venture into patient public involvement work started 11 and a half years ago, and it all happened by accident. None of this was planned. Right, in terms of some of the barriers I've faced over the years, is the obvious one is, where are these opportunities to get involved in health research advertised? Why would you look at a university's website? Why would you look at a hospital trust website where these health opportunities to be involved in health research are often advertised? Unless you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old student looking at university website, why would you even look at university's website? So increasing awareness of opportunities to be involved in health research, particularly for those people that are hard to reach, people whose voices are often not heard, is crucially important. Another issue is adverts are often in English, but English is not everybody's first language. Should adverts be in another different common language? Research participants are often expected to speak English, but there's plenty of people who would like to be involved in health research for whom English is not their first language and can't speak English. Patient information sheets that are often given out deciding whether people want to be involved in any form of research are often very long and complicated. Consent forms are often very long and complicated. That puts people off from being involved in any form of health research. Practical issues of when meetings are held, what time of the day, where are these meetings held? Is it in a hospital setting? Is it on a university campus? Can create logistical barriers for people getting involved in health research. Volume of paperwork that is often sent once you're a PPI member. Often is the case that you might be asked to read, sorry, I'm not trying to put people off, I'm just trying to be realistic. You might be asked to read 60 pages of A4 in a week. My case, over Easter, I was asked to read 400 pages in 4 days. It's not good PPI practice. Short notice of work that has to be done often puts people off. Often the title of a project, clinical technical titles, few of you will know exactly what surgical med tech does or what it entails. That can put people off. As I said before, documentation that is not written in plain English can be a barrier. All our time is valuable. If there's no financial incentive to get involved in health research, other than for altruistic reasons, why would you get involved? Our time sacrifices should be recognised. Transport arrangements, for those of you who haven't got own transport, does the organisation pay for your travel? Does it provide taxis for those that have a disability and would struggle to get to a university or hospital site, venue? If you've ever had a bad experience with a particular researcher at a particular establishment, the chances are you won't want to be involved with that researcher again. So when it comes to differential treatment, I've had first-hand experience of that, where a project manager for one of the large hospital trusts in Greater Manchester paid my colleague double what he paid me, and this was done right in front of my eyes. And this was a friend or a colleague of mine who obviously was going to tell me later on how much he got paid for doing the same work I did. So differential treatment amongst public contributors is definitely a no-no and can put people off from further engagement with health research. The time taken to be reimbursed for any work we've done can be off-putting. Often is the practice with Leeds University, you will not get paid for at least 6 to 8 weeks, which can put people off and is seen as a barrier for further engagement with health research. I've mentioned transport issues, time of the meeting, the duration of the meeting, whether you have breaks, whether travel expenses are reimbursed on the day, poor communication from researchers, whereby you've inputted a lot of your time, energy and effort into a project, and you never hear from them for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, even 3-4 months. That can put you off and be seen as a barrier for further engagement. Where your work is not acknowledged, no credits given for all the work and input we've done on a research project, where the academic just takes all the credit for the work they've done, but our input is not even acknowledged in the acknowledgements. That can be a barrier for further engagement. I think there I will stop. I think I need a cup of tea now. I'm willing to elaborate further. These are not examples from Leeds University and MedTech. These are just some of the examples I wrote down last night based on my 11.5 years of engagement with health research, spanning numerous universities, numerous NHS England and Health Education England panels and boards.
So thank you, Manoj. And I think before I ask for another contribution, so the issue of reimbursement is actually a very good one. So I think in the past, and probably is still the case now, there is almost an expectation that you're going to give up your time voluntarily and you're going to give it up for free. And well, actually, if you're helping towards the development of a new device, which you are not going to benefit from financially, there needs to be a recognition of your time and your effort, because you're taking the time out of your busy days. You could be sitting outside right now in the sun, you could be enjoying life and not sitting here. And as manager said, if someone's asking you to review a 400-page document and you're not getting as much as even a mug or a pen, then sometimes it makes people reevaluate their options. And what the NHR has is a framework for reimbursing people's time, which is actually very important, because the reimbursement is not necessarily an incentive in the form of a bribe for you to do stuff for us, but the incentive is more or less just recognizing that you've come with a unique perspective. You've actually helped somebody do a better protocol, write a better funding application, and this is the only way we're able to say thank you. So in most cases, it tends to come as a payment. So there is a fixed rate for payments. And sometimes it comes in the form of vouchers that you can then use in mainstream shops. So I think the most common ones are love to shop vouchers that they tend to give out. And then there's some opportunities where they blankly state, all you're going to get is a thank you. And all of that really is up to you, depending on what you participate in. There's some people who are happy to do it for free because the conditions either close to them, or they just want to see the advancement of science, and that tends to happen more with patients that have had cancer or people that have cared for somebody with cancer. They just want to see things progress. So Hamid, you've got a question? You want to say something? You're mute before you start talking.
Yes, I was going to say that the vouchers I love to shop have expiry date, and it's normally 6 months, and people have a lot of issues with that. And I think sometimes people get a bit voucher fatigue, because you get a voucher, it's got expiry date, you got to spend it within 6 months, and it's all that kind of stress. So I think we need to think about how we can get them to start giving Amazon vouchers rather than love to shop, because Amazon's got 10 years long time span, and love to shop only got 6 months.
Yeah, that's a good point, worth noting. And I mean, I'd definitely prefer Amazon vouchers. They seem to have more things going on for them that way. But some of the barriers that we do experience in that regard is that with the NHR, all the payment has to come from the university or the teaching hospitals that basically receives the money from the Department of Health. So in our case, for example, it's the Leeds teaching hospitals. And as Manoj has already highlighted, it's almost normal for, it can take between 6 to 8 weeks. It's not been a no-no for some. There's one person, I think it took them half a year, just to get, I think it was a £60 payment, and some of it is really down to just the systems each host organization has. And it's not something that we can do personally, but there is a working group that the NHR has set up centrally, where they actually are inviting members of the public to help them work out, what's the best way to sort this out so that it becomes more uniform across the country. So I know there's another organization, another university where you can submit your claims online. You just fill in a form, press submit, and I think a couple of days later you get your payment. And then with others, you still have the equivalent of a paper form that you need to fill in. Mo, you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Dee. It's a great opportunity to be here today. I really do acknowledge that, and I do recognise a few people here, and Hamid's one of them. It's good to see Hamid. I just wanted to mention that I do a lot of care work and kind of get involved in as much as I can. I've got a son, he's 26 years old, and I'm a carer for him. Well, me and my wife are both caring for him since birth. He was born with a very bad heart condition that turned out to be a lung and heart condition. He's got several kind of complex issues with his health, etc., like renal and lung and heart lack expansion. So I've got involved just before COVID, I think it was, just to find out what was going on with new technology, etc., because we've been kind of very intrigued with the research from the day he was born. Basically, he was born like a premature in Manchester, a very specialist hospital, and he had a good caretaker at him in Manchester and then at Liverpool as well. But I've been kind of like doing research on and off for the past 20 years, I think now, but not as much as people have been talking here. Like, I know I just got quite a lot of experience there, you know. So I've been on and off, and it's just more to learn about my son's condition, I think, and to learn where we can go, because you get given this information, you have to hold it as if it's kind of, you know, what it is. But sometimes you do more research, you can find kind of other avenues, and we've tried to do that, and unfortunately we kind of failed in getting my son his lung and heart transplant, which we're over with now. We understand how things work and don't work, sort of thing. So that's a great kind of teaching for us in all kind of essence of our life with him. And we're passing it on to the parents that we meet in hospitals and surroundings and in focus groups like this as well. So my question would be, where would you actually go when you get presented with vouchers and kind of monetary value? Because I've seen quite a lot of jobs that I could well qualify for, because I was like a part accountant and part kind of HR and like payrolls and stuff like that. So I was good at numbers, I'm not sure now, but where do you go when you have people like myself and quite a lot of us that are non-paid or paid carers or whatever it is? It's not really a good paid job, as you might want to say. It's benefits and stuff, isn't it, really? So we've taken that choice to do that road, and me and my wife don't regret it at all. But there's these opportunities that are there, and we've had so much experience over the 26 years. We've been from Edinburgh to Newcastle to kind of Birmingham to Manchester, and then to Great Ormond Street. My son's unfortunately been quite up and down the UK. You know, he's been on ECMO and all sorts of things. So we've got experience with different hospitals, different trusts, and different procedures and different kind of clinicians as well. So there is a vast amount of knowledge there, and I do like to speak about it. But where do you get the hurdle of where people say you must accept the payment to kind of be in the remit of doing this, because they just have to cancel it and just kind of not do it, you know? And like Hamid said, it's vouchers that are kind of something that we kind of get away with, really, you know, because we're passing on our experience now. So I think I've spoken too much there, but can you just touch on people that are on benefits and stuff, how we can hurdle that? Because I can pass it on to loads of people that would like to help, and it's helping the mental health, it's helping people kind of communicate with people once they're stuck at home. So there's all sorts of advantages on top of it, to what Manoj just said today. So yeah.
Yeah. Manoj, do you want to comment on that briefly? So I know, just before I let you speak, so in terms of people on benefits, it's always a question that then comes in, because if you get payment for doing research services, I know for some people what the experience is then they are now eligible to pay tax, or they have to report the tax. The other people that say you need to declare yourself as something else to HMRC to be able to keep that money, or you've got to earn within a certain threshold for you not to get on the radar for tax purposes. But I'll let Manoj respond to that, because Manoj is obviously in a similar position. So Manoj.
Thank you, Mo. I'm not an expert on these issues. I mean, I received carers allowance for my sister, that huge amount of £67.70 a week. And that then restricts me to only earning £110 a week through this kind of activity. Any week where I've earned a penny or more than that figure, then I lose my carers allowance, which has happened for many weeks in the past, but that's a long story. Lots of people have these issues, which then does put them off getting involved in health research. Now, what they've done at the University of Manchester is they have an agreement with the Inland Revenue that you can earn up to £1,500 a year through PPI work, and it doesn't get taxed, but you do have to declare it to the Inland Revenue, but that's an arrangement they have. So you need to check with whichever organisation you're working with or potentially thinking of working with, whether they have any sort of arrangement with the Inland Revenue that you don't get taxed at source.
And just to add on to that, I know there is the NICHR themselves have also prepared. I'll dig that out and I'll send it out possibly tomorrow to everyone. But there's also guidance on what you should do and how you need to interact with Inland Revenue on any PPI payments. So they've made a start in doing that. And there is, I believe, a working group as well that's looking at that. So they are in constant communication with Inland Revenue because different organizations do things differently to mitigate for that. So speaking from the University of Leeds perspective, because they're the ones that process our payments, they have this thing where if you want to get involved in any of the PPI work of any NICHR units they manage, they register you as a temporary member of staff. And that enables them to then transfer the money directly into your bank account. And I think they keep tabs on how much money has gone in over the year. And as managers said, I think they sort of flag it up to you. If you start getting over a certain limit, I think what they do then is flag it up to you. And then it's obviously up to you to say, well, actually, that's a stop for this year so that I don't get into a whole lot of bother with Inland Revenue. So different organizations just do it differently. But yeah, the main purpose, the main factor behind that is just the complexities around Inland Revenue and how they believe, you should be taxed for the activity. So that's definitely a very, very huge barrier, I think, for a lot of people as well. Particularly if you're retired, you're a carer, you're no longer in a full-time job, then, depending on how much involvement you have, that can definitely impact on that. Especially if you're going to be doing a long project, because you're definitely going to get more than, let's say 1,500 a year. So for some projects, you might actually be signed up to do something for a day a week for 12 months. And a day a week equates to about, so a day's work under NICHR is about £150 a day is what you get paid. So the more work that you do and the more hours you put in, obviously they will pay you for that, but then that's now got to go through the formal system and it's got to be registered somewhere. But what I will do after this is I will look for that, the information that they have prepared on Inland Revenue and PPI payments. I will send that out. And if you've got any more questions on that, what I can do is I can then direct you to someone who can actually answer those and tell you a bit more about the work that you're doing.
Thank you for that very great representation, really, of the actual struggles that people do have, because it's a very complex system, and we don't really want to get into kind of any trouble with the Inland Revenue off because we're just in something kind of doing stuff. And so yeah, thank you so much for that, and thank you, Manoj, as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. What I'll do is I'm going to ask Deborah, because Deborah recently joined our PPI committee, and then I'll go to a comment from Stella. But Deborah, with you being new, I think it would also be interesting to get your perspectives on what you think are the barriers to involvement coming from sort of new into the NICHR, because unlike Manoj, Manoj has got an extensive history. Deborah's recently started. And that's one of the things we deliberately did, was to actually find people who are completely new to the process to help us shape the services that we do. So go ahead, Deborah.
Yes, I do agree with everything that's been said. I definitely think maybe the long process of actually applying to join the PPI groups. Sometimes they're consent forms, sometimes they ask follow-up questions, Zoom interviews as well, to kind of gauge where you are in life and make sure you meet their standard requirements. And I think also the timing as well. Some of them are quite long, like more than 2 hours plus, which is a bit excessive, especially if you've got things to do during the day, or if you have appointments and places to go. Most of them are virtual, which is good, so that people can just have easy access and log on from a phone, maybe after work or once they're at home, which is good. But I do think probably the location is one as well, because obviously people can't access or get to certain locations because of COVID, because of the timing, and there's strikes as well happening sometimes. And yeah, I think the payment as well, sometimes it can be very long. It can be more than 4 to 8 weeks waiting for the payment to come through. So that would be a bit of an issue as well. And I think, yeah, just placing it on times when everybody's free. Maybe you could send out like a chart or where people, like a doodle kind of timing for schedules that when people are free, and then we can input the times and the days that best work for us.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think a comment you made on, the virtual and the good, which is sort of one of the positives, if you want to put it that way, that came out of COVID, because actually prior to COVID, if you wanted to get involved, you had to travel, in our instance anyway, you had to travel to Leeds. So even if it was for a 1-hour meeting, the requirement was you hop on a train or a bus or a plane and you come and spend 1 hour in Leeds and then you go back again. I mean, we would pay your transport and your subsistence, so any food and drink you bought on the trip. But like you mentioned, Deborah, it's taking that time out, because in a trip to Leeds, especially for London, if you're based in London, if you're in the southwest or you're way up north, that's an entire day that you need to take out just to say a few words over the course of an hour. Doesn't seem like a good use of time. So what we've actually found is the virtual meetings have definitely worked better for us, because we actually now have a whole lot more people who are actually based outside Leeds. Whereas if you had been a fly on the wall in 2018, 2019, you would have found that we would be having this conversation with people who live within a 20-mile radius of Leeds, literally, and no one from London or even Birmingham at all. Yeah, so the virtual meetings definitely helps. And with that, what we try and do is, you'll notice there's captions. If people want the captions, we can put those on. The invite also had instructions for joining just using a normal telephone as well. Because, as much as the internet, fingers crossed, seems to be working okay right now, we all know what happens when it just suddenly cuts out and then you can't get back into the meeting again. So there's all those challenges as well with the virtual stuff. I'll just read out some comments from Stella. So Stella said it's problematic in a couple of ways. She's seen projects where the PPI have stated that they will not claim any payments, and she's concerned that if they needed to step down during the project, there's no budget to award a successor, should a successor want to actually step into those shoes, which is a very good point, because then the project teams then get used to not paying somebody something. You come in and you say, I definitely need my time to be reimbursed, and then they tell you, no, actually we don't have a budget for that because the other person said we didn't need it. So that's some of the sort of things that we're trying to standardize. Kate, I think there's some button that says reactions, but if not, you can unmute yourself and talk, because I've seen your comment. Are you able to unmute?
It's gone back.
There we go. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, yes. I didn't want to interrupt your conversation, but so I don't know if I've joined the right meeting. I've been a volunteer on the Patients and Public group of the Digital Healthcare Wales for the last, well, just over half a year, I suppose. And I'm a retired paediatrician, and during COVID, I decided I wanted to do some volunteering, but to work remotely. And the particular area that I've been interested in for several years is what you might call the business process of healthcare delivery. And so I have, picked up various opportunities to sort of volunteer or make contact, some of which have been fruitful, such as the Digital Healthcare Wales. And so you mentioned in your introduction that the what do you call it, NHR is
HR, yeah,
that's you, yes, has some interest in digitalization and healthcare processes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the reason I applied to join this meeting,
Mm-hmm.
but it was so long ago I've actually forgotten.
No.
So am I barking up the wrong tree, or is this of interest?
No, you're not barking up the wrong tree. I think the concept of involving the patient voice is the same, regardless of what the service is. Don't be put off by the surgery in the title. We are just hosting it because we just want to raise awareness of the entire process. If you might decide, well, actually, surgery is not for me, but we know plenty of other people that are looking for the patient voice, for the digital element of it. So, the whole digital is a big thing at the moment within the NHS, and looking for partners and the patient voice to do that. So the concepts are the same. So it doesn't matter. You can talk about your own digital experiences. They're equally as valid as other people talking about other different healthcare conditions. So we're not focusing on the condition. It's the act of involvement and the barriers within it.
So I suppose what I would like to know, if it isn't exactly the program that you're working on, but how would I find the right forum to present my observations about the process of healthcare delivery, and how it is really not being discussed or used in the way that it needs to be used to underpin these programs?
That's a very good question, and I wish I had a magic answer and say, well, here's the website you need to go to, and I'll let Manoj come in a minute. But I think that's the point that we're trying to make, is it's actually very difficult, where if you want to do something, it's so fragmented. There's just loads of different parts that are out there. So, in some instances, like what you're saying, what you want to get involved in, it might be actually done on an individual hospital basis. So now you've got to approach different hospitals to find out if they're interested in getting that. You might need to approach different research departments, and all those contact details really aren't easy to get hold of. And one of the things that we are looking to do is basically try and have almost like a front door, so that if you want to get involved in some aspect, at least we should be able to signpost you and say, these are the people that you need to go to. So I can definitely tell you that within Leeds, there is a group that would be really happy to have your input, but that's just me.
Yes. So did you say that you were in Leeds?
Yeah, so we are based in Leeds, but our work is national.
So before I retired, I worked for the NHS Information Authority, doing information strategies for the national service frameworks. Mm-hmm. And then I spent another 3 years with Connecting for Health. Yeah. And I started in Leeds, but I live in Cardiff, and between when I was appointed and when I started, they actually stopped the flight. And it would take me a whole day to travel by train up to Leeds. But I'm familiar with Leeds. Yeah. So subsequently, I was redeployed to do the user interface design for the medical record. Mm-hmm. And this is how I came to sort of realize that there is this, I think if you're a management consultant, the first thing they would ask you is, what is your business process? But within healthcare, it's not a term that's been used at all. Yeah. But in actual fact, my job was really to explain to the user interface designers what actually happened when a patient came to see somebody, or when you do a ward round, or any aspect of encounter. Yeah. And because I've got that knowledge, and I don't find it published anywhere, I've really looking for the right group to discuss it with a bit further.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let Manoj come in, and then I can come into that. Yes, Manoj.
Hi, Kate. So hello. I think with your experience and education knowledge to date, you really should try to get onto an NHS England or Health Education England committee, where you can give your perspective, not only as a former doctor, but also as a patient, possibly carer, and obviously a family member. So you need to look for national opportunities with NHS England, Health Education England, and also the Department of Health and Social Care, because they do have national committees. Very competitive to get onto, but yes, they're the ones you should be targeting.
I mean, one of the problems is that quite often when you do these things, they exclude people who live in Wales.
Well, I'm sure there's equivalent ones in Wales that you should be able to apply to.
Yeah, but I think NICE as well, they're also looking for members, you know, from everywhere. And I'm pretty sure the NHR basically take from anywhere. I know the NHR requirement for funding is mainly to pay academics and clinicians who are working, you know, on their programs, that the requirement has to be they are based in England. But the NHR also has similar things. So for example, in their funding panels, they're always looking for members to sit on their funding panels, because with your knowledge, they can actually use that to assess how likely it is that a certain technology will be used. Because if they're funding these things, they want to see a return on investment. The last thing they want is to put in £5 million into the development of a technology, and 10 years down the line, it's gathering dust and it's not being used. So the NHR funding panels are a very, very good avenue to look for. And I can send you the links, you know,
Yes,
for
please.
that,
Yeah.
as well, because I know they're always looking for people. And Stella's put in, you could be well placed for NHS Wales BVHC. Are you familiar with that?
So what?
Better Value Healthcare. NHS Wales Better Value.
No, I don't, because I'm not working, you see. I haven't worked for about 15 years. So I don't see the things that perhaps working people would see. So Better Healthcare Wales, is that it?
Yeah, Better Value, yeah, and NHS Wales, Better Value Healthcare. So Stella, if you can ping Kate a direct message, or you can just, if you've got a link, if you put it in the chat, and then Kate will have a look.
Right.
Yeah. So someone's, sorry, I've got something. So yes, Stella, there you go. You can unmute.
Right, Kate, I was wondering if you know Sally Lewis. And if not, I'll see if I can get... Kate, would you mind giving me a private message to your full name, and I'll see if I can track down Sally Lewis or someone to get in touch with you about NHS Wales and Better Value Healthcare.
So how do I send you?
So if you go to the bottom,
in the chat,
you don't need to have any messages. What was that? I can't hear you all at once. What am I doing? I go to chat.
Yeah, go to chat.
Right.
And at the bottom, it says to everyone in blue, but you need to click on the arrow next to everyone in the meeting and select Stella's name. And then it will put Stella's name in blue. And then you can type in the message. And if you click enter, it will just only go to Stella. Your details only go to Stella. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, any other comments anyone wants to raise on getting on barriers to involvement, or if there's any other questions just around the research, then please do raise your hand and ask.
Can I make a general comment? That is, once you've developed a professional relationship with a particular academic, they know you, they know your strengths, you know their strengths, and formed a professional working relationship over a number of years, lots of these barriers disappear. So it's just in the initial stages you face a lot of barriers. But like from my experience, I know a number of academics at the University of Manchester who I've worked with a number of years. So they know exactly where I'm coming from. They know that I need about 2 weeks notice when it comes to reading advanced literature, etc. A lot of these barriers disappear over time because you learn to overcome them, and other people get to know you. So these barriers do disappear over time.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They do disappear, but in the case of getting your payments in as soon as possible, you sort of learn to live with them. And I know it's not ideal, but it's one of those things that's outside our control. If we had the personal bank account, we would literally pay you out the next day. But unfortunately, we've got to go through the structures that are in place to do that, and the timelines involved with it as well. Another thing, yes, Manoj?
And as I've put in chat, if you're working with a good researcher, that is a big enabler, because they can get things done and they can make our lives as public contributors that much easier. So a lot depends on who you're dealing with and how good they are, how professional they are, and how genuine they are about our involvement as public contributors.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, so I was going to say that, in terms of also finding out about opportunities, I don't know how many of you are familiar. There's a platform called Voice Global, and this is where you can register your details. I'll try find it whilst I'm trying to talk to you guys as well. But there's a platform called Voice Global where you register that. And what happens is people with different researchers and companies basically input their requirements into that. And you can choose to be notified at the end of every day or at the beginning of the week. And it summarizes all the opportunities. So you start to get a sense of actually what's happening in the research environment, what type of things people are looking for, what type of inputs required. There are also opportunities for training as well. So there's some centers that also offer sort of what they call PPI training. So it basically just introduces you to the world of more or less the administration of patient and public involvement.
Also, there's one called Healthcare Research Wales. Somebody was asking about Wales earlier on. Wales got their own Healthcare Research Wales.
Yeah, exactly. So there are, thanks, Hamid. So there are different platforms that you can register, and what I can do is I can collate those, and you can just have a look and see, what opportunities are there to start off with. You don't have to commit to anything, obviously, but it gives you a very good indication. I mean, in our particular instance, because we deal with surgery, our main, what we do offer is the opportunity for you to sit in one of our meetings, so you can just sit quietly. You don't have to comment, you don't have to do anything. When you can just listen to the nature of the discussions that are going on and what people are asking, because these meetings will have they've got your surgeons, you've got your academics, and you've just got lay members. You've got people who are really not subject matter experts in that particular area, but you start to get a sense of how a research collaboration forms. And then you can actually start to see the gaps in terms of, well, actually, have they asked the patient about this? So what you're finding more of these days is things around the artificial intelligence. And that's actually very important for healthcare, because with artificial intelligence, it's the information that goes in informs the predictive models. So if that information is only coming from one particular source or one particular group of people, which tend to be very educated people, people who understand computers a lot, and people with access to a lot of resources, all of that feeds those algorithms. And we do want algorithms that are actually very inclusive for everything. So I'll just sort of give you an example around that. I mean, there was one that was in the news about the oximeters, which is the device that measures your blood oxygen via your finger. So that's this thing that they clip on you. What they found was actually, if you've got darker skin, it's actually not as accurate as if you've got lighter skin. And we've actually got a company at the moment that's developed something that you put inside your ears. So it actually then measures vital signs. So you basically stick it in your ear like a hearing aid, and it's actually able to detect oxygen levels really, really well, and other vital sign measurements. So we are looking at actually comparing the two together to see which one actually provides better results. So that's another opportunity actually for a MedTech focus group, where we will be looking for volunteers, to sign up for those. And, if you want to actually then find out about the science behind it, and you want to find out about the rationale and why somebody thought this was a good idea and why the clinicians think it's a good idea, then, our MedTech focus groups are a very good way to get involved in those particular things. So Gifty, I know earlier on you mentioned that you're really interested in the science. That's a good way to get interested in the science without the death by PowerPoint, because we do make sure that they explain these concepts in a lay summary. They don't use really technical words. In the good old days, you know, they'd actually come to a physical location and you could handle the device, you could play around with it and you could see what it does. And that also does help, you know, especially if it's you who's going to be using these devices. You need to understand how it feels. You know, is it going to react with your skin? Is it going to, how do they know it's taking the right measurements? They're then able to answer these questions for you. So for the work that we do, I mean, we've got a mailing list, and we can only send these opportunities out to people on the mailing list. Or if you are registered on a website, I'll send out the links for people in research. So that's another NIHR platform. We do also publish opportunities there, and you can basically sign up for that as well. And yeah, feel free to register, attend. There's no obligation whatsoever to say anything in that meeting. If you really just want to come for the educational and to understand what's going on, that's perfectly fine. Yes, Manoj.
You've just mentioned people in research. So one of the great advantages of that website is the fact that often projects are one-offs. So you can maybe attend a 2-hour meeting on a particular topic. Say you've got some form of arthritis, for example. You're free that afternoon, you attend the 2-hour meeting, you contribute. You might have had to read a couple of pages of A4 beforehand. You get paid for your 2 hours time, and that's it. There's no requirement for ongoing commitment. A lot of the projects on there are one-off, so that suits a lot of people, where particular researchers want so many people to attend a workshop or a group of workshops, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point. So yeah, so as manager said, you know, people in research, just one-off, there's no commitment whatsoever. The bits where you tend to have the commitment is where you join committees, because then there is a commitment for you to attend and to contribute to those meetings. But these one-off meetings, these one-off workshops are a good opportunity to find your feet, basically, to figure out what is it that I'm interested in. You might find that you're actually more interested in reviewing funding applications and seeing what new technologies are coming and listening to what other people think about those particular applications. Or you might find, oh, I'm just okay reading patient information leaflets and correcting, you know, people's documents and making sure, you know, someone who's got, who only stopped at year 6, for example, can understand what's being proposed in that, because there's things around reading age and making sure everyone can understand the information that's presented. You know, so this is not the participant. We're not asking you to be signed up to a clinical trial and test all sorts of things. You're more than happy to do that, obviously, should you wish. This is the bit before that, which is informing how that clinical trial is going to be done, or how that product development is going to be done, or whether we should actually fund something because it makes sense in terms of the public good. And in order to do that, we need a wide range of voices, and we just need different perspectives to figure that out. Yes, Gifty? You okay with that? You're on mute in case you're talking.
Yes, because in my job in clinical coding, I retired as an advisor. Will you be able to see the little gadgets and all that?
Yeah, I think,
you know, the devices.
Yeah.
It was very interesting when we are in our way.
Yeah.
We see angioplasty, all these breast implants, but we never saw nothing. So just book with.
Yeah.
And,
no, there is opportunity. I think from next year, there will be opportunities where what we're looking at doing is, instead of having the meetings just only in Leeds, we're face to face where it makes sense, is possibly have them in other locations as well and try and spread the load around. So the opportunity, if you really want to see something face to face and touch and feel it, if that's the way, if that stuff excites you, the opportunities are there, and we can pay for your transport as well. So you can either buy your ticket yourself and come up, or you can actually ask us to buy the ticket on your behalf. And then all we do is we send you the code or you go and collect it at a train station, all those things, we can facilitate that. So you don't actually need to use your own cash to actually buy the travel requirements. We can actually buy it on our end and make the tickets. There's a way of making tickets available to you, on the other end. So, that's another thing that we try and do to reduce those barriers as well, is reduce that, because we can appreciate, I think, obviously if you just walk into London King's Cross and you say, you want to go to Leeds, that's 200 quid that they want on the spot, which even I would be very, very, I'll try and squirm my way out of that. But yeah, it's a lot of money to come up front. So, if you feel that you would actually benefit from having some face-to-face conversation every once and again, then we can do that. Might be a perfect opportunity actually, because in November, we have national conferences every year. They tend to be in November. And this year it's going to be in Leeds. So the last 2 years have been virtual. But in November this year, we're going to have that in Leeds, and we're actually going to have a couple of companies coming with their actual devices. So if that kind of thing is interesting and you want to, come to that particular meeting, talk to companies, talk to different researchers, then I definitely would say, subscribe to our mailing list, or drop us a message to say you're only interested in attending this bit for now, if you don't want to get regular messages. And as soon as we sort of release more information on that, we'll let you know. And yeah, we'll sort out any travel arrangements and any accommodation arrangements that you might need.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hamid.
Thank you so much. I think that's absolutely fantastic to hear about the opportunities to get involved with the training. And also earlier on, I was mentioning that we were focusing on healthcare on England, but Wales does have their own healthcare research, Wales. So maybe in the future we could think about partnership working, or if we were interested. But I would very be keen to come forward for the training face to face and any other opportunity. I think it'd be amazing for us all to come together and share and get to know each other and network. That is a true meaningful of PPI. Thank you.
No, thank you, Hamid. And we can definitely continue that conversation in terms of working in a partnership, because that's what we're all about. Like I said, we're not exclusive to England. So if you think there's opportunities for partnership working with different organizations, there actually is funding that the NHR is giving. And as long as you've got a partner in England, you can actually apply for that funding. So I think it's between 50 and 150,000 pounds that community organizations can apply for to support, work along research and building research capacity.
Is there any funding for, is there any funding for PPI members for their development, or for partnership working, or organizing something, or carrying out a project? So I think that should be the next push, is how can we get PPI members embedded across different things? So we're not just called upon where we're needed as services and carers, but we're also leading on things, or facilitating things, or supporting things. I would love to create in the future, have PPI fellowships where we can do research or develop networks or do something or exchange videos about PPI. And I just want to share that. I'm being a bit ambitious, but it would be super amazing.
Yeah, no, very ambitious, and I like those ideas. But I think we should. I'll definitely get in touch with you, and we can continue that conversation. But the opportunity is there to apply for funding for those purposes. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out how that would work, so we can actually support you in putting a good application, because you would need to put that application in, and we are then the supporting of the NHR that is basically saying this is a fantastic idea and we want to do that.
That sounds amazing. Thank you. Please get in touch with me. I look forward to speaking.
Okay, so as we draw to a close, Harry, any thoughts? Have you found it useful?
I found it very, very enjoyable. Right from the start, you gave the structure of NHS, NHR, how it's all built up with the various systems, funding. Absolutely fascinating, and really it's at a higher level than I'm very much involved. I mean, I'm involved with Wolverhampton University in well, it's not an initiative because it's been going about 12, 13 years, and it's enabling service users and the university to learn together. In fact, we're actually called Results. And my involvement is, at the moment, is if someone is doing a piece of research on whatever, then if it's part of my domain, which the one I'm on at the moment is to do with gestational diabetes, and it's quite fascinating, and I'm enjoying. So really, there's so much going on with PPI, and you can't have too much of it. As far as I'm concerned, as I said earlier on, I am all about collaboration. It's like a game of football or whatever, and the more people that you can bring together, and I hope you'll keep me involved because, as I say, I'm totally committed to collaboration. So
That's fantastic.
thank you so much for setting it all up.
No, thank you, Harry. And I think for everyone else as well, you know, if there's other diseases that you want to find out about, we can definitely facilitate the introductions to those areas. It doesn't just have to be about surgery. So I'll just go around. So Kate, in terms of summarizing.
Right, well, thank you. I'm looking forward to receiving the links.
Yeah.
And I will certainly take up opportunities that arise. I don't think I'm probably necessarily the person to do the exact surgical things that you're discussing, because I've only got so much time and I prefer to do most of my things online.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Thank you, Kate. Stella?
I found it very interesting because of the diversity of people involved in this and our different backgrounds and what we bring to patient and public involvement. Mm-hmm. And it has given me some more insight as to the organisational setup, because I'm on the Innovation for Invention Challenge Committee. Yeah. And as you'll know, we assess devices, and I very much have a health technology appraisal mindset coming into that, as well as a user design background. So that's why I was particularly interested in this, and I have learned something, so thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Stella. Gifty?
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll put my name on your mailing list. Actually, I think of this the Patients Association newsletter that I got to know about this meeting. I'm very happy, but I'll be late. I've never been so late. So that would be
that's great to hear. Yeah, and we will definitely send exciting opportunities. You know, just to sort of excite your minds a bit. Yeah. So in terms of surgery at the moment, so basically what tends to happen before people have surgery is there's a fitness to surgery test. So obviously this doesn't include emergency surgery because there's no way you're going to do that. But basically, if you're going to have elective surgery, which is surgery that you schedule an appointment for, there's a fitness to surgery test that needs to be taken. And you know, if you've ever watched programs about people training to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Everest, they get on these bicycles, they got all these tubes and stuff put in their faces to measure the oxygen output. That's what the fitness to surgery test is. So you can imagine if you're in a certain age group, that will work perfectly well. You might enjoy that test. But if you're in a certain age group where you've got musculoskeletal problems, there's no way you're going to do that. And currently what happens within the NHS is it's up to the surgeon to decide whether the risk of operating on you is greater than the benefit. So it's basically throwing the dice, you know, and just seeing where that lands. And we've got a company that have developed a patch. So basically you put this patch and you can actually get the same measurements as this fitness bike is. So what we are doing is, first of all, is it true? Does it work? And if it does work, what's the best way to get it across all the hospitals in the NHS? So that's just sort of an example of some of the stuff that we do. Mo?
Okay, that is majorly cool.
Yeah, it is very, very cool. So yeah, so we're going to have the focus group. And in case you're wondering, I've not been ignoring Roxana. Roxana is one of my project managers, so she's the one who's actually going to be doing it. She's the one who's going to be working with, I think they're having the focus group. Is it this week or next week?
Yes, we have a focus group this week, actually on Wednesday. Hi, Manoj. I'm looking forward for your input. Thank you so much for your participation today. It was so useful for me because I'm working on a daily basis with a lot of PPI members, as Manoj knows me. And I learned a lot, and I try to deliver as friendly as possible and easily possible for each of us to bring on board their perspective on different kind of technologies. And I could see during my work experience a lot of mindset and perspective change after the PPI focus group or workshop we choose to deliver in regards to particular projects. So I really want to thank you overall for all the activities you are doing.
Thanks, Roxana. Mo, any parting final comments?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for a very delightful kind of information overload. Is kind of for me, I think, because I'm kind of always looking for information. So it's been a kind of a very good insight as to the various options that we can look at, and I'm really looking forward to the options that you're going to be sending us and stuff, and the links, etc. You know, because there's so much you can look into, and you kind of get astray as to what you're actually looking for. So it'd be nice to have a look at your list of links and stuff. It'd be nice hearing other people's stories as well. Yeah, it'd be wonderful, because it's kind of a thing that you would like to do this and this, but being a carer, being someone that's already got responsibilities. I mean, being at work's different, isn't it? Because it's kind of like, but being a carer, your life depends on it. So, and you've got somebody's life in your hand as well. So it's kind of like a little bit more than a responsibility, isn't it? So it's kind of like a very kind of fine line that you know that you can do work, you can't do work. You can, like Minot said, you need time to read up and stuff, and that's kind of particularly what I do as well. You know, I struggle with my eyes as well, and it's very hard to read 300-400 pages at a go.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's worth it at the end because you are learning all the time, and that's the wonderful aspects of it, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah, thanks for that, Mo. And I think, you know, just highlighting sort of the carer's contribution as well, especially for devices that are going to be used at home and technologies that will be used at home. The carer voice is immensely powerful for that. You know, there is no substitute for it. And I think in the past, it's always been ignored because people actually don't really recognize carers as being actually a group of people that are contributing to healthcare services. So, you know, for us, having carers is something that we more than welcome on our group. We're just not interested in people who've had the conditions themselves and, you know, gotten through it. If you're caring for people, then you can actually ask some of those questions that a clinician would not think of, you know, because you know what the experience is. You're living that from morning till night, and you're going to ask the questions in the best interests of the loved ones that you're looking after. So yeah, you know, definitely from a carer's perspective, it's something that we are always happy to support, as Manoj can attest. And finally, Hamid, have you got anything else to add in addition to your contributions?
Thank you so much for putting up with me and my Wi-Fi issues today. But I must say, it was lovely to meet new people, and it was great to see Manoj, because I know Manoj from other places. And also, I'm just kind of getting this exciting feeling that we've got a bright future ahead, because the way you kind of shared the knowledge and the way other members have contributed, it seems like there's some good stuff that's going to be happening, because you mentioned something in November, and then we got our monthly sessions. So what I would like to say is that let's keep the energy going, and let's find a way how we can make PPI even more integral part of the whole research world, They were not complimentary, but were compulsory. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely take those comments on board, and we'll definitely, one of the things we want to do is actually focus more on actually spreading out the case studies where you can actually listen to people who've been involved and the companies and what they've done. So watch that space.
And also, it was nice to see, I think I've seen Gifty before in some meetings, and I know Mo very well. Hi, Mo. Sorry, I didn't get to say hello to you before. And it's nice, so it's nice to make new friends and also see old friends in the group. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Hamid. And I'd also like to say a special thank you to Deborah and Manoj for joining the meeting and providing their insights. So as I mentioned earlier, these two actually sit on our committee, which meets quarterly, and it's more high-level strategy type stuff. And it was actually their idea. We came to them with a problem, which was how do we raise more awareness? And the PPI committee said, well, actually, you need to have sessions where members of the public can actually just engage and find out a bit more and be open and free to ask questions. So they are the reason why we've got this forum. So thank you to Deborah and Manoj.
Yeah.
Yeah, Manoj.
I'd like to end on a positive. So we've discussed barriers today, but one of the positives is whereby when you've assisted a researcher or clinician, say in obtaining funding, they come back to you and say, this wouldn't have been possible without your contribution. Thank you very much. So that is definitely a plus. And it makes you feel good that you've done something worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so thank you for that. So I know we've overrun by almost 20 minutes, but it's good that you all stayed. But once again, thank you very much. What I will do after this is I will probably tomorrow at this rate, I'm going to send you an email, and that email is going to have all sorts of information in there. There'll be sign up links for different things. There'll also be a link to different opportunities that are currently available that just are wide ranging, not necessarily specific to surgical, but if you are interested in anything from preventing surgery from happening all the way to recovering after surgery, then that is the space that we operate in. You can sign up to our mailing list and you can find out a bit. You will get a couple of emails randomly from us. You're not going to get like 10 emails a day, but I'll probably say at least once a fortnight, and you should get something from us. And once again, it's a take it or leave it, and the offer is still open. If you do want to observe a meeting and be an observer on any of our meetings, or then just literally, please just ask the question, write to us if you want to be in a certain environment to find out a bit more, and we'll do our best to make it happen. Okay, so with that, I shall let you go.
Thank you.
And have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Sorry,
Well
I'm just
done,
saying
Z.
thank you, V,
Well done.
and I look forward to your email and getting in touch with you very soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.